In this lecture, we are going to see the program correctness. So far, whatever the language paradigms such as imperative, declarative paradigms which are available in the programming environments have been discussed. In the imperative languages, there are two categories. One is structural languages, another is object oriented language, where in case of declarative languages, functional and logic languages. So we have seen the properties of these language paradigms. However, whatever the programming language paradigm you consider, the most important thing that you need to be considered is how effectively or efficiently you will write the program. That means once a program has been written, how well it works in the various situations while corresponding to that particular application. So this how you are going to check whether your program is correct or not, and in what way it is correct, how well it will work, and all these aspects, how you will check. That means these kind of checking must be done for every programming language that you use for the application development. Either it may be imperative or declarative, but you must consider some generic things to check whether the written program is correct or not. The main reason is these programming languages are a kind of powerful tools for designing and implementing the complex softwares. Usually, a complex software system is a difficult to manage, and also difficult to design also. So this sometimes this may result into errors and bugs. So we have a thing that prevention is better than cure. That means once you might have written the program correctly, then this kind of errors and bugs can be avoided while when this particular project or the software is gone for the full-time deployment or full-scale deployment. So for this purpose, in the early stages, program will be checked manually. Used to check manually. There are no certain tools available to do this. But later on, by knowing the difficulty of this managing the complex systems, the programmers and the computer scientists have developed some methodologies for checking the program before going for the full-length deployment. The ultimate aim of this program correctness methodologies is to develop a reliable software or reliable complex software. So that reason it is appropriate after studying the categories of programming languages, it is always better to examine the question of language features that supports the design of reliable software systems, and how these features extend the expressive power of the conventional languages. So the reason in this lecture we are going to see the issue of the program correctness from the important perspective of the language features and the language paradigms. That means how you will maintain how you will achieve the program correctness in case of imperative languages, program correctness with respect to functional languages, program correctness with respect to logical languages. So to this end, we are going to see various program correctness concepts. These particular slides have been considered from the programming languages concepts by Alan B. Tucker. This is the chapter 18 of the L.N.B. Tucker textbook. So in this we are going to consider axiomatic semantics, in which fundamental concepts we are going to be discussed. Then the assignment rule, the rules of consequences, correctness of the max function, correctness of a program with loops, this we are going to see. Next is formal methods tools, JML, Java modeling language, and correctness of object-oriented programs, correctness of functional programs. These are the main concepts that we are going to see in this particular program correctness lectures. Intuitively, a correct program is one that does exactly what it is intended to, no more and less to do in that. That means what exactly the algorithm designed, in the same way the program has to perform. So a formally correct program is one those correctness can be proved mathematically, because sometimes the natural way of representing any representation or any algorithm sometimes may be ambiguous, because the representation will be in terms of the natural languages, and natural languages are always ambiguous. So the reason we use mathematical representations. So this kind of correctness can be proved mathematically, then it is said to be formally correct program. So for this, what you are supposed to do? This requires a language for specifying precisely what the program is intended to do, and specification language are based on mathematical logic. So in order to represent this mathematical logic, Hoare invented axiomatic semantics in 1969 as a tool for specifying the program behavior and proving the correctness. So in this in the series of correctness, we are going to use this axiomatic semantics. First we will see what is this axiomatic semantics and how these axiomatic semantics are used for proving the program correctness. Until recently, correctness have been an academic exercise. That means it is left to the programmer who designs the software, is responsible for checking the correctness. Now it is a key element for the critical software systems. So that means whatever the latest critical systems that they develop for all the critical systems, this has become the part of the project for verifying the program correctness. Or this particular program correctness is also said to be program verification. Depending upon the type of programming language that you use, there are various correctness tools available. For example, theorem provers. For theorem provers, we use a PVS system. Basically, this PVS is a verification system, that is a specification language actually, integrated with some support tools and the theorem provers. It is intended to capture state of the art in the mechanized formal methods, and to be sufficiently rugged that it can be used for significant applications. So you can type PVS 6.0 like that. Now currently I hope 6.0 version is going on. It is an open source version, and we also provide pre-built. That means we can also use the provided pre-built binaries that are available in PVS 6.0 to write our own theorem proving scripts for the program. So these are the two formal way of writing the correctness related code. However, to have an idea, you may go through the Google and search for the PVS current version. Next one is modeling languages. Basically, these modeling languages are useful for the object-oriented languages when they go for design, when they are in the design stage. So this unified modeling language UML and object constraint language are used especially to put constraint on the use of the functions in the object. Next, some specification languages like Java modeling language JML. And other programming language supports such as EFIL, Java, Ada. These are the programming languages that support these correctness tools. And by design by contract, which is a kind of specification methodology. So these are the various dimensions of the program correctness that have been used depending upon the type of programming language that you use for your project. Among these, the first one is axiomatic semantics. What it means exactly is, axiomatic semantics is a language actually for specifying what a particular program is supposed to do. So based on the idea of the assertion, you might have listened the concept of assertion. In Java programming also you might have find a function called assert. So what this assertion will do, an assertion is a predicate that describes the state of the program at a point in its execution. If that assertion is satisfied, then only the program execution will go to the next statement. So this generally can be represented like a precondition and postcondition while executing a key statement in the program. A postcondition is an assertion that states the program result. That means once the key statement executed, then how the corresponding parameters or variables have been changed. So a postcondition is going to be checked after the statement's execution. Before statement's execution, a kind of precondition need to be placed, which is a kind of assertion that states that what must be true before the entering into that particular key statements or before the program begins running. So this assertion can be kept within one function, within a function before and after the key statements, or before function call and after function call. So it depends upon the situation where it fits. Hore has proposed the way of mentioning this precondition and postcondition. It is said to be Hore triple. That means P means precondition, S means the key statements or the function body, and a Q means here postcondition. Always the precondition must be true to enter into this function body or the key statements. Once this function body execution is over, check for the postcondition. It's a very simple thing. Once you do this, what will happen means majority of the bugs or majority of the problems can be rectified. Here true, that is while entering in before the condition or while before entering into the program body. Precondition P, there are no constraints on the input for the particular function. So when it becomes true, then it will enter into the program body. In case of postcondition Q, max is the mathematical idea of the maximum. So here max of A comma B. So the postcondition is maximum value will be given to M. So that means after returning the maximum value, so whatever the value you got, that should be assigned to a variable called M. This is the postcondition placed. In case of database applications such as, you may keep some constraints as a precondition. That means a person wants to withdraw an amount from his savings account. Then savings account means there may be a constraint like the minimum amount in the savings account should be 500 rupees. Then only he can withdraw the amount. Otherwise he cannot withdraw the amount. This is the precondition. Once this precondition is satisfied, then only he can withdraw the amount. Once the withdrawing is over, then the post condition is that adjust the balance. Okay, and check whether the balance is going to negative or not. So, or depending upon the application, that means this precondition and post condition way of declarations will vary depending upon the application specification. So the program correctness totally deals with how what the program is actually intended to do, whether it is doing or not. But here there is another term coined here, which is called partial correctness. What is this partial correctness? There is no guarantee that a program will terminate normally. That is for some inputs. A simple example is you might have written a factorial program in C, and the factorial program will take a long integer or returns the long integer. So have you ever tried passing the parameter as around 20 or 50 to the factorial function? So obviously that particular factorial program cannot compute, even though it computes 50 factorial, the output is not the 50 factorial or 20 factorial that what it desires. So that means this partial correctness is that for some inputs it may enter an infinite loop sometimes, or it may fail to complete its calculation correctly. So recall the factorial program. Once you have supplied an integer variable for calculating the factorial, since the resultant value, the factorial value, is crossing the range of the integer, so hence you will not get the correct value. So this is what is called partial correctness. For function, the function wise it is correct. The way what you have written the factorial program may be correct, but because of the limitations of the data type that you have used in the program, you may not get the correct output. A program S is partially correct for pre and post conditions P and Q if whenever S begins in a state that satisfies P, it terminates it terminates and computes the result that satisfies Q. So that means the preconditions and post conditions will be satisfied here. However, the partially correct program for pre and post conditions P and Q, whether the S begins in the state that satisfies P, that means the subprogram may start by satisfying the precondition, but it terminates and computes the result that satisfies the post condition. But that value cannot be stored in integer, so integer function fails, or this particular function fails. But the function calculation is correct only, but because of the range that you supply, this function is going to fail. So this kind of situations will come under the partial correctness. So how to prove this partial correctness? There are several ways to prove this partial correctness. Program S is partially correct for pre and post conditions. P and Q, that is P is the precondition and Q is the post condition. If Hoare triple, that is PSQ, is valid, there are 7 rules of inferences that can be used to prove the validity of the triple. First one is assignment rule, second sequence rule, third one is skip rule, conditional rule, loop rule. These are said to be basic statement types. The first 5 inferences are basic statement types. Next is precondition consequence rule and post condition consequence rule, which are used to simplify the intermediate triples. So total 7 inferences are going to be used to prove the partial correctness. So how to make this proof methodology? Here these are the steps we need to follow to prove the partial correctness of the program. So here proof methodology is like this. A proof is naturally represented as proof tree. A tree will be formed. The proof starts with the triple, that is precondition, function body and post condition. And example, consider that true if A greater than or equal to B, M is equal to A, else M is equal to B. Then post condition m is equal to max of a comma b. And inference is written as p comma q by r. The meaning of this is, if p and q are valid, that means the precondition and post condition are valid, then r is inference to be a valid inference. Using appropriate rules of inferences, break the triple into a group of inferences in which each triple is individually valid. That means it is asking the it is mentioning that the function body should be decomposed, that means dissected into individual units, so that each triple is individually valid, and the inference logically combines to form a tree whose root is the program's original or a triple. So don't confuse in this. Next slides, in the next slides I will give you a simple example. See, because this is a mathematical way of representing the proof, so sometimes you may be get confused, but once you go into the example, it will become very easy. So to make the concept very easy, go through these slides. A program is correct if it produces correct output for all possible inputs. This is called partial correctness. So previously, I hope because of the mathematical notations you might have not understood. This is the plain text I am giving you for easy understanding of the what is program correctness. It produces correct output. That means the program produces correct output for all possible inputs. Then it is said to be partial correctness. And if the program is said to be correct if it terminates correctly. So an initial assertion gives you properties of the input, and the final assertion will give the properties of the output. Okay. So precondition, function body, and post condition. Initial assertion means precondition. Final assertion means post condition. Okay. So initial assertion gives the properties of the input. That is what the input you are supplying. The initial and final assertion must be given, so that otherwise we cannot check the correctness. So what is the precondition and what is the post condition must be given before, otherwise we cannot check the correctness. The reason is, just to recall the side effects and short circuit problems in C programming. When you try to understand the program, and even after understanding also, sometimes when the expected output was asked, you may expect one output, but after really compiling on the using compiler and get the result, the output may be different. The reason is the program may consisting of some side effects related statements or short circuit related statements. In such a cases, even though you know the input and you know the input and you know that input is valid input, but still sometimes output may not be as expected. So that reason you are supposed to provide the initial assertion statement, assertion condition, that means initial value, and what is the expected output. If both are there, then only you can use the program correctness methodology to verify that whether the program that what you have written is correct or not. Sometimes this input value will also be useful for checking the boundary values of the given data structures or boundary value analysis kind of things. The reason is maybe there may be an array declared with some initial boundary and final boundary. Sometimes the elements may fall within the boundary, sometimes may not fall outside of the boundary. That means this kind of boundary value analysis can also be done once you know the initial assertion and final assertion. Okay. So boundary value analysis is one kind of analysis that will go for checking of the program correctness. Like that, this is one category, checking of the precondition and post condition. A program or program segment S is partially correct if with respect to initial assertion P and final assertion Q, whenever P is true for some input, then S will be terminated. If it is not terminated, then Q is true for the output. That means if the P is true, then for some input, then S terminates. Then Q is true if the output is true for the given output. So it will be written like this: P S Q indicates that a program or program segment S is partially correct with respect to initial assertion P and final assertion Q. This is also said to be Hoare triple. This is a very, very important thing to know, that note it, partial correctness only states that program produces the correct result if it terminates. Okay, if it terminates, then the partial correctness will states that the program produces the correct result. But you are supposed to understand here is, it does not provide that the program terminates. That means it will not give you any information about whether really the program terminates or not. But it will say that okay, it will give you the correct result if it terminates. Whether it will terminate or not, it will not mention. It will not give you any kind of assurance that it will terminate or not. Let us consider a simple example. A program segment S is as follows: y is equal to 2 and z is equal to x plus y. Next, initial assertion is initially x is equal to 1. So when x is equal to 1, already y was declared as 2, so obviously z is equal to 3. Final assertion, that is q, z is equal to 3. So in order to check whether the program is correct or not, you are supposed to supply both the initial assertion and final assertion. So to prove this P of S Q, this is Hoare triple. To prove this, first of all, assume the precondition and check whether the precondition is correct or not. Then x initially has the value 1, so this precondition is true. Next, y is assigned value 2. Z is then assigned the value x plus y. So that is equal to 1 plus 2, which is 3. Therefore, S is correct with respect to P and Q. So that means since it is giving you the correct result, that is correct post condition, so obviously the program is said to be terminated. So that means since the program was terminated, that is z is equal to x plus y, since the program was terminated, it is giving you the correct result. Okay. So partial correctness proof will always tell you that it will lead to the correct output if program terminates. Since the program terminated here in this case, it is giving you the correct result, which is what we expected, that is z is equal to 3. Then how to go for verification? So it is recommended that decompose the main function into sub functions. That is, decompose this S, that is program segment, into sub segments. So that means this program segment may be here a simple statement we have considered for the understanding purpose, that is equal to z is equal to x plus y. But this segment sometimes may be too complex. Maybe too complex structure may be there. When too complex and clumsy structure of statements are available, then it is somewhat difficult for you to assess the program segment. So that reason it is recommended to decompose this particular program segment as S1, S2. So for S1, and S2 also, you provide a precondition and post condition like P, S1, S2, Q. So P is the precondition for S1. Then there you keep an intermediate condition, say R, which is the post condition for S1, and this post condition should be the input condition for S2, and it will give some output condition which is called Q. So decompose your program. We can split our program into parts, or we can say subprograms, and prove that each of these parts is correct. That means each individual subprograms that we have decomposed are correct. Split S into subprograms S1 and S2. Then S is then S1 followed by S2. That means S is equal to S1 colon S2. Assume that P is the initial assertion of the S1 and Q is the final assertion of the S1. So P, S1, final assertion. So the final assertion of the S1 should be the initial assertion of the S2. So Q is the initial assertion of the S2 and R is the final assertion of the S2. Further assume that we have established P S1 Q and Q S2 R. So we established that these two are true. Then it follows that if P is true and S1 executes, if P is true and S1 executes and terminates, then Q is true. That means if the S1 terminates successfully, then you can say that Q, whatever the expected outcome Q is true. If Q is true, that means the input condition for the S2, and S2 executes and terminates, then R is said to be true. So instead of making complex program segment to be checked at once, we have decomposed the complex program segment into two subprograms, and for every subprogram we have added precondition. For the first subprogram we have added precondition and a post condition. Since the subprograms has to execute in sequence, the post condition of the previous subprogram should be the precondition for the next subprogram. So like that, if you might have developed three different subprograms or decomposed into 3 or 4 different subprograms, now P, S1, Q and Q, S2, R. Now R should be the input to the another subprogram, and some other Z or something will be the output, that is post condition for that, and it may be input for the next subsequent subprograms. So like that you have to divide the subprograms. Especially this is used for going for the partial correctness of the program. The main aim is we cannot test the complex software at once, so the reason it is always trying to go for the decomposition. This is also called as modularity. So in object orientation, modularity makes a significant contribution to achieve the reusability. Basically this reusability will be achieved via coupling and cohesion, loose coupling and high cohesion. Loose coupling means this loose coupling is achieved via modules. So you are supposed to write a module which is highly cohesive but loosely coupled with other modules. Then only it is very easy for you to identify with the preconditions and post conditions. But if you might have mixed 3 or 4 modules into one module, then it is said to be a complex subsystem or complex program segment. So that reason, if such kind of complex program segments are there, it is always recommended to decompose that and test with the help of preconditions and post conditions. So in this program, finally, we can decide that therefore, if P is true and S executes and terminates R is true. So this is the way the decomposed program segments can be tested in sequence, so that it will ultimately will test the partial correctness of the program. So we have seen previously how to provide this rule in terms of rule inferences. It will be decided as P comma Q by R. So it means that we have divided the program segment into two subsegments, S1 and S2. For S1, we have made a precondition P and a post condition Q, and this post condition is the precondition to S2, and there is a post condition R for S2. That means we have divided it. So P S1 Q, Q S2 R. So therefore the precondition P within the brackets S1 S2 then R. Let us see one more simple conditional statement example. Assume program segment as follows: if condition then S. That means S is executed if the condition is true. S is not executed if the condition is false. This is what the meaning of this. To verify that the segment above is true with respect to the initial assertion, that is precondition P, final assertion Q, shows that when P is true, when the precondition is true, when the initial assertion is true and condition is true, then S executes. And obviously if S is executed, then Q is also true. That means it is a successful execution. Another is if P is true and condition fails. If the condition failed, even though P is true, that means S will not execute. Once X is not executed, so finally output the Q must be is true. So here what is the meaning of this? It is checking of a simple if else condition. First it will check for the precondition. After precondition, if the condition is true, then S executes and Q will be true. If P is true and condition is false, then S does not execute, because we have not mentioned any else block here. Then finally we have written Q after the if statement, so Q will also be Q is given as true. Assume that you have given Q as false, then this program partial program correctness will fail, because the precondition and post conditions must be supplied by the programmer itself. Then only we can check the program correctness. That means what the input you expected, what is the output you have expected. Both must be mentioned before, then only we can check whether the program is correctly ending or not. So in this case, the simple inference conditions will be written like this: precondition, if the precondition is true and condition is satisfied, that is condition is also true, then the program segment will execute, and hence Q will be true. And if P is true and condition is not executed, then the program segment will not be executed. Directly it will give you the exit of the program statement, and the post condition is going to be true. So therefore P, that is precondition, if condition then S and post condition. So this is the way inference rules are going to be created. So it is just like the program correctness will use the discrete mathematics notations for representing the conditions, simple conditions for the rule of inferences to check the partial correctness of the program. Next we will see the loop invariant concept. So how to decompose the program with loop invariants. Assume program segment which is as follows: while condition do s. That means if the condition is true, then only the program segment will be executed. S is repeatedly executed while condition is true, which means that S is repeatedly executed until the condition is false. So here second alternative is, so S will be repeated till condition is if the condition is true. Otherwise the condition is false, then S will terminate. That means till condition is false, S will execute. So an assertion that remains true each time S is executed is required. This is called a loop invariant. This is called loop invariant, and P is a loop invariant if that is precondition is true and condition is true, then the segment will be executed, then it will go for the successful post condition, and this particular thing is true. So to verify that the segment above is true with respect to loop invariant P, so it shows that P is true before S is executed, and P is true and condition is false on termination of the loop. So that means the precondition is true and the condition is false on termination of the loop. So the loop will be terminated once the condition is false. If it terminates, that means if condition doesn't become false, then loop will always repeatedly go on. So this particular thing will go into the infinite loop. So the program never terminates. This is what the meaning here. So how to represent this in the inference rule form? If the precondition is true and condition is also true, then S will go on. So and S will go on. So therefore precondition while condition do S. If not condition, okay, then the program will stop. So not condition means it's false, and even though the precondition is true, the entire condition program segment terminates. So false and true, it will give you false. So thereby the program will be terminated. So far we have seen how to write the formal way of representing this precondition, post condition and program segment, and developing the inference rules. But practically speaking, is it possible for each and every complex system to create this much lengthy or this many formal parameters or formal representations, we can say? So whether the programmer or the software development team need to focus on developing of the complex system or developing of the formal methods. So that reason, even though the formal methods are very good to write on paper and to verify, but it is of it creates another trouble for the programmers to work with. So hence these particular formal methods usually, since it was developed in 1960s and 70s, so it is effectively used to verify the hardware design. But when coming to the software design software means it which is invisible, and estimating the complexity of the software design, which is invisible thing, is somewhat difficult. But new tools are emerged to do these particular tasks, which is called Java modeling language, JML, Spark or Ada. So these techniques have been effective in some critical systems. So example, the Paris metro system has used these particular designs. Many software designers reject the formal methods because, as just I told you, they are too complex for the programmers. I hope from the beginning onwards, you might have done a lot of focus on the current lecture, because so many inferences and not objects, not relations have been placed in the inference rules. So it is too complex for the programmers to understand. So, and at the same time, time bitter spent with alternative testing methods instead of keep on writing the formal methods. So that reason there exists some more modern formal methods available. So that we'll see in the next lecture. So in the next lecture we'll see some formal methods which are suitable for the latest programming languages. Which is especially useful for the program correctness checking, and also some other miscellaneous concepts in the next lecture.